Hello, this is Talking Europe. I'm Catherine Nicholson, today at the European Parliament in Brussels. Now, it was the report that China didn't want to see the light of day. Just minutes before her mandate ended, the office of now former United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights Michelle Bachelet finally published its long overdue assessment of human rights in China's Xinjiang region. It contained damning findings of mass arbitrary detention of Uyghur minority people, forced labour, torture, sexual and gender-based violence and other atrocities against Uyghurs, which it concluded could legally be considered crimes against humanity. Now, this chimes with the position of the European Parliament, which had already overwhelmingly voted to recognise the Chinese government's actions against the Uyghurs as such. The question now is, where does the European Union go from here in its relationship with China? With me, Reinhard Bütikofer, number one on a list of 5 members of the European Parliament, personally, individually sanctioned by the Chinese government. You're also chair of the Parliament's delegation for relations with China. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
And across from you, we have Uighurs, former Lithuanian defense minister, now an MEP in the Socialists and Democrats group, Lithuania, a country whose government has taken a particularly outspoken stance on China, in particular regarding relations with Taiwan. Mr. Uighurs, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me on this list.
Well, let's start. We'll come to the situation specifically about Taiwan a little bit later on. We'll start with, as I said, the Uyghurs, that report. Mr. Bütikofer, you personally have long spoken out about the situation of the Uyghurs. To what extent do you think is this report by Michelle Bachelet's office a turning point for the Uyghurs?
Well, it certainly is a turning point in the sense that Mrs. Bachelet, just before leaving office, as you said, stood up against an extremely strong pressure by the Chinese that wanted to take control of the United Nations office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights and dictate from Beijing what could be said and what could not be said. In that regard, she effectively defended the role of human rights, and I think we have to be grateful to her for that. As regards the facts on the ground, there's nothing much surprising in the report. All of what the report states had been in the public domain before. And regarding the reaction from the European institutions, I'm afraid we can also not speak about major turning point because effectively most member states didn't speak up at all. The German Foreign Ministry issued a statement. The Chancellery didn't, others not anything. And the High Representative, Mr. Borrell, did publish a statement, but it was basically as weak as it gets. And now everybody's trying to take cover from the one important question: are we going to act on that? And the first challenge for all the member states would be to team up with like-minded countries and make sure that in the Human Rights Council of the United Nations, this report is going to be on the agenda and will be discussed.
Mr. Uighurs.
Yeah, for us, really, we have the report, which is quite objective, despite the pressures Mr. Bütikofer said from the China side. But it's the new, strong argument for the future discussion, for our action.
And how do you think the European Union and its member states should follow up on this report?
You know, for European Union, for us Europeans, it's very important the human rights values, and I think that we should always keep it as a priority in relation with the China, despite that China is very important also in this new situation where the Russia aggression against the Ukraine. I was quite satisfied at the end of the September, the ambassador in the United Nations from China said that territorial integrity should be respected. It's some kind of balance will always the China support or showing the support to Russia. But we need the Chinese on our side or maybe neutral in this critical situation in Ukraine.
Yeah, there is obviously this context of the Russian war against Ukraine, Mr. Butikofer, and China as the biggest country in the world and this big power seen as an important element in the calculations, its support for Russia or not. How much should this be taken into European calculations in terms of European attitudes and action toward China?
Well, I would advocate that we start by looking at the facts. And the facts are that at the beginning of February, Xi Jinping and President Putin signed a contract that has been dubbed an agreement for everlasting, limitless friendship. And Josep Borrell has called that a revisionist charter. Basically, what they set out in that document is the claim that authoritarian powers like Russia and China should dominate the world in the future. They squarely and confrontationally attack NATO and the European Union in that document. And China has been far from neutral on the Ukraine war. When we learn the lessons that we have to learn from that war, we have to acknowledge that there's no way we can allow ourselves to remain dependent on authoritarian powers like Russia and China. And the Chinese have even peddled the Russian lies about the war in the global south to our detriment.
So you believe that actually now is, in fact, the time to take a strong stand against China?
Yes, we don't abandon the ambition to cooperate wherever possible. We will compete in a fair way as we are concerned, but we have to acknowledge that there is a systemic rivalry and that China is trying to pursue a dominant, a hegemonic policy, not just for their own region.
I think maybe we should come to the aspect of this story that's to do with Taiwan, because as I said, the Lithuanian government, you're in opposition party to that government, but from Lithuania, of course, has taken a strong stance, recognized a representation office as the Taiwanese office rather than Taipei, as it's usually more diplomatically called in terms of countries not wanting to upset China. So Lithuania has taken this strong stance. There have been economic repercussions from Beijing on your country because of this. Just to be clear, you support the Lithuanian government making a strong stand against Taiwan, but I understand that you think that they've not done well on getting more EU support.
Yeah, you know, this was a brave decision. I think recognizing the values priority in the world, and but from my point of view, it was not enough prepared, this decision, because after 1 year of this decision, no other country follow us. We adopt in the European Union, I think, 2 resolutions supporting Lithuania and asking for other countries, for European Commission to join and to support Lithuania, but no practical steps from the other countries. And our business and our citizens have some problems in relation with China.
Mr. Butikofer, do you support the Lithuanian government's actions? Do you believe that other EU countries should be taking a similar strong stance?
Well, if my colleague allows, I would tend to defend the Lithuanian government against their own opposition. I think their position has been well within the limits of the EU's One China policy. No doubt about that. China has been trying to tell the Lithuanian government that they should not establish such an office, regardless of the name. Even though 16 countries already have such an office, the Chinese wanted to dictate to Lithuania that you are a lesser country than others, and you're not allowed to do that. I support their decision to go forward, and I have seen and I am grateful for that, a great deal of solidarity with Lithuania partly also motivated by the acknowledgement that what the Chinese did in this context was attacking the holy grail of the European Union, which is the single market.
Yeah, I think that we just need more solidarity in European Union, acting as one union and the Commission also.
Well, China is the biggest trading partner for the European Union in goods, at least, surpassing the United States in the last year. Clearly, that's got to come into people's calculations.
Yeah, but you know, despite that, this trade relation with China, it's very important, a big, huge country, but we also need to keep the value, our values, not to recognizing that they can do everything, being the huge market for Europe. It's not the case. We should act in both human rights, labor force, and only that, the trade with China.
Final question to you, Mr. Butikofer, on a similar angle, really. Can the EU, in this time of real economic difficulty in Europe at the moment, could the EU sustain another area of economic pain by potentially angering China?
Look, nobody advocates that we should rupture our relationship with China, but we should learn the lesson. Getting yourself into a situation of dependency will get you in trouble. So we have to move away from that. When a company like Volkswagen does 40% of their turnover and 50% of their profits in one country, China, they're too dependent. We have to change that.
Mr. Butikofer, Mr. Olekas, thank you so much for this discussion today.
Thank you for inviting.
Thanks to you for watching as well. Hope to see you very soon for more European news here on France 24.